Welcome back to my Glitch in the Matrix series. If you're new here, then it's just welcome. Y'all, before we get into the video, don't forget to give a thumbs up, leave anything in the comments, leave a pumpkin because you know that's our thing. And if you have your own story to tell, you can send it to the email in the description. And with that being said, let's get into the first story. When I was in my early 20s, I worked at a popular coffee shop. One day, we hired a new guy. When we first met, it was an instant connection. We both looked at each other and said, "I know you from somewhere." We knew personal details about each other. I knew his family's history and where he just moved from. He knew where I grew up and talked about my brothers and sisters like he knew them. However, we never, in the 2 years of working together, could figure out how we knew each other. We grew up in different countries, but somehow we ended up at the same community college. We went there together for an entire year. When we thought back on our schedules, we never had a single class together or ran into each other. We never figured it out, and to this day, I don't understand how we knew this information about each other. But our connection was real. I don't know how I knew so much about him, and he knew so much about me. But being around him always felt like deja vu. In 2012, I was in a long-term relationship. Over time, we found out that her mom and my then stepmom had been friends for years. My then girlfriend even knew my stepbrothers. We had a ton of the same friends. We ran in the same circles and actually had been around each other, but never actually spoke. Also, my dad, who was a dentist, used to clean her little sister's teeth. We had about 7 mutual friends in common. Then one day, I went to one of those Project X parties. While I was there, that's when me and her finally spoke. Fast forward a few years and I broke up with my then girlfriend for my future girlfriend, who was also at the Project X party. We had also ran in the same circles and had mutual friends. It was like a cycle, and I got a sense of deja vu, as that's how I met my first girlfriend. Ever since I can remember, I've always had weird, vivid dreams, reoccurring dreams, and even deja vu. And they always seem to point to random events in my life. But this one in particular was different. When I was about 12 years old, I had a dream of being in a white room, completely empty besides 2 white couches facing each other, about 8 feet apart. I was sitting in one, and there was a boy my age sitting in the other, and we both looked confused. We were asking who and why the other person was and why we were in each other's dreams. I remember we ended up hitting it off, and we had a few short conversations, then we said goodbye, but we never moved from our seats. I woke up and thought it was weird, but after a while, I forgot about the whole thing. Then 4 years later, I fall asleep one night, only to find myself in that same white room. I immediately recognized the couches, and now a 16-year-old boy sat in front of me. We both looked at each other, and we began to cry. I told him that I can't believe how much he's grown. He said the same thing about me. We caught up like old friends about random life events and this crazy connection we have. It was weird. We ended up getting off the couches to embrace each other. It was such a heartfelt hug. During the hug, I told him, I don't think we'll see each other again after this. He agreed. So we just hugged for a while, cried, and wished each other the best of luck. Eventually, when we sat back down, I woke up and it was the next day. I am now 21. Until this day, I remember that dream so vividly that it could have happened yesterday. This happened about 15 years ago. I was having a smoke with my friend in my living room when my roll-up went out, so I asked him, "Hey, throw me the disposable lighter." He threw it 5 or so feet across the room towards me. He did it so casually and gently with an underhand throw. But as soon as I started to cut my hand ready to catch it, mid-air, the lighter suddenly explodes. It was a ball of orange flame. Then seemingly out of nowhere, it poofed out of existence. It was a cheap, mostly thick plastic type of lighter with only a few metal components. So for it to explode mid-air, you would think it would have left a fair amount of debris. We saw it happen mid-air, but we heard nothing fly around or hit the floor. After searching the room in amazement, we soon realized there was nothing, not a single trace of it anywhere. It simply just no longer existed. I saw an exact doppelganger of my mother's dead ex, whom I was close with. So the ex of my mother died. I was still close to him, and at that point, I had just started to visit him more often. He died unexpectedly at the age of 49 due to a heart attack. Drug abuse will do that to you. But he was sober for many years before he died. For this story, we'll just call the ex J. Weeks after he died, I saw a dark car at the grocery store by his house. The car was the exact same make and model that he had. It even had these distinctive feathers hanging down the rearview mirror, just like he had in his car. That seemed weird, but not unusual. But then I look up and I noticed a guy coming out of the store. Same height, same hair color, hairstyle, same style of clothing even. He had tattoos on his arm where Jay had tattoos. He looked exactly like him. It was so weird. I was trying not to stare, but as he drove off, he passed me and he smiled. He smiled at me so big, in the exact same manner that Jay used to. Windows down, wind blowing through his hair, blasting Jay's favorite band. I usually don't believe in coincidences, but I don't know what else to call it. I sometimes foresee meeting random people I don't know, and this time I foresaw a terrible deathly accident that I had no way of predicting. Sometimes I have weird thoughts. I'd walk through a city and suddenly it crosses my mind. Maybe person X could be here. And then a few minutes later, I see person X in a store or walking by, completely random. It happened with a friend whom I had never met at that point. We met online, but I lived at least 20 miles away. I randomly thought, oh, I could see Gabby shopping here today. Every time I get a thought like that, it always has a weird feeling behind it. So when my random internet friend crossed my mind, I never thought that I would walk into a store and actually see her there. It's even weirder because I have no idea why I thought of her in the first place. Another time, and this one is really strange, I got the same weird feeling while visiting the big cat exhibit in the zoo. I saw the zookeeper feeding lions and he looked tired. He looked ill and really down. Then the most random thought crossed my mind. I said to myself, he's gonna die soon. I'm a nurse, so yes, when somebody has an ill-looking skin color, I already know that they're not in the best shape. But I don't usually jump to these type of impressions with strangers. There was no look of illness to him. I just had the random thought that he would die soon. Maybe because he looked tired. I swore it was nothing more than an intrusive thought. 2 days later, I'm watching the news at home. It reported that he entered the tiger exhibit, but he failed to lock one of the gates behind him. He left a flap open, allowed one of the tigers to get back in, and ultimately taking his life with a single bite to his neck. It sounded like such a horrible death, and the fact that I knew it before it happened is even more eerie. Growing up, I had this reoccurring vivid dream that I was sitting in a classroom and a friend of mine very proudly was showing me the drawing he did. And he asked me, guess what's so special about this drawing? In my dream, I would say that I didn't know. And then he proceeded to tell me that he hid his phone number in the drawing. I would go on to have this dream about 6 or 7 times. Then one year I moved over 3,000 miles from where I lived. After I moved in high school, I had a friend randomly show me the exact same drawing from my dream. And he went on to ask me, guess what's so special about this? At first I was confused and I said, of course, you showed me this before. You hid your phone number in it, right? I remember him being so flabbergasted because not only did he just finish the drawing, he never showed me that drawing once. I then noticed after that day, I never had that dream again. I want to know if this is a glitch in the matrix or not. 2 years ago, I was driving to work. It was around 4:30 a.m. and I would always get to work around 4:50 or 5 o'clock. I remember it being 4:30 and I was on the freeway. My exit was coming up and I looked at the clock. I thought, yep, right on time. An exit came up, but it wasn't mine. The next exit was about 5 minutes away and that was the last exit on the freeway before it merges into another road. I drove another 10 minutes without seeing my exit and I'm thinking, I should be there by now. I definitely didn't miss it. All of the exits were lit up very well. Hardly any cars were on the road. Now it's 4:40 and the end of the freeway is coming up. It's merging. If I merge with this road, it would take me to an unfamiliar location. I had to pull over and use Google Maps to see where I was. As I pulled up the directions on Google Maps, it let me know that I was 20 minutes away from work. I couldn't comprehend how. How the hell could this happen? Now I'm going to be late for work. Or maybe if I timed it right, I would be right on time. I was not sure where I was and it was still dark outside with no other cars around. I'm just focusing on driving and I'm listening to Google Maps directions. I finally get to work and I look at the time. It's 4:50 on the dot, the time I would usually arrive for work. I don't know how or what happened. I should have been late, or at least right on time. But somehow I drove 20 minutes and 10 minutes without speeding. Nothing like this has happened to me since, and I can't get it out of my head. When I was younger, about 7 or 8 years old, I used to sleep with my mom when my dad was out of town for work. One night, I instantly shot awake because I heard a noise from the kitchen. Soon after the noise, I heard a person running full speed down the hall and jumping through a window. It shattered and I even saw the person running outside. I instantly woke my mom up and told her about it. She murmured something, ignored me, and went back to bed. The next morning, I remember waking up, shooting up when I realized what had happened the night before, running downstairs, ready to see my mom's reaction. As I got down there, I noticed nothing was wrong with the window in the kitchen. There was no glass anywhere. It wasn't shattered anymore, just nothing. I know that it wasn't a nightmare, and I never had hallucinations before. It was so vivid, I could see every detail of it happening. It felt so real. However, when I went on to ask my mom about it, she chalked it up to a nightmare. As I got older and talked to friends about it, some believe that the timelines overlapped. In another reality, there actually was an intruder in our home. And when I woke up, they fled, shattering the window. A couple of days ago, I had a frightening experience, which I'm going to share with you. I went to bed like normal and had a dream. The dream started with me waking up out of my bed as normal, going downstairs. My mother came down as usual. However, my sister never left her room, which isn't uncommon for her. I suspected nothing of it, thinking she had just slept in. After a while had passed, there was still no sign of her. I headed upstairs to go inside of her room, only to find her passed out on the floor. I immediately called my mother, who took my sister to the hospital. They then told us that she had had a heart attack. That was my dream. I woke up frantic, thinking my sister went into cardiac arrest, only to realize it didn't actually happen. Continuing my day, I go downstairs as usual. My mom comes down, but not my sister. I remembered my dream and got so anxious. I wanted to run and go wake her up, but I didn't. I didn't want to wake her up over some silly dream. After a while, some time passes, and I start to get worried, so I ended up going upstairs to her room, only to find her unconscious. I call my mom immediately, and we take her to the hospital. I tried to explain to my mother about my dream, and that I had already seen this happen. But of course, she doesn't believe me. We get to the hospital and they tell us she had a heart attack. She turned out to be okay, but I couldn't stop thinking about my dream. Did I predict the future? All right, y'all, so that's it for this video. If y'all ever experienced anything like this, let me know in the comments. Tell me your stories, or you can email them to the email in the description, or actually I'll pin the email so it can be easier for you to find. For me, the last story took the cake because I always tell people to pay attention to their dreams, because I personally feel like you will get messages through your dreams. So I always tell people to pay attention. But let me know what y'all think about these stories. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, leave anything in the comments, and make sure you are subscribed so you can be notified for when I post. Y'all already know the vibes. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye.